Final station diagnostic complete. Command codes accepted. Welcome to Space Station Nerd 1 Commander.
Nerd 1? The name of the station is Eagle 1. Computer confirm.
Station designation changed to match nature of inhabitant, Commander.
Nature of inhabitant. We'll see about that. Stupid Kirk. He got a sexy computer voice, and I just have a smart-ass one. Alright, that should just about do it. Computer, what is the status of Eagle 1?
Confirmed, Commander. Nerd 1 online.
I don't have time to deal with this right now. I have a broadcast to make. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new Eagle 1 space station. Let's get started.
Nerd 1.
Hello and welcome to this episode 3 of the Amateur Hour podcast. Today we're going to be talking about some video game news about Smash Brothers, Fire Emblem. I've got a story here about video games and the IRS. This is completely crazy. We're going to be talking about some movies, and I'm going to give you my quick thoughts on a couple of games I've been playing. Ready to listen to some assholes talk about random crap on the internet. So, the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out. Now, I haven't gone to see this. I usually don't go see movies in theaters unless it's something really big that piques my interest. I prefer to get it on Blu-ray once it comes out so I can watch it in the safety and comfort of my own home. But occasionally, I will venture out and come down from the space station and go to the movie theater and see a movie. I'm planning to go see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie this coming weekend, so I'll probably be giving more in-depth thoughts on it once I've actually seen the film, but a few things have really jumped out at me. One of the first things that I noticed was how popular the movie was. Video game movies don't have the best reputation, and that's for some very valid reasons. Let's face it, there have been some stinker movies out there, but this one seems to be pretty good, and everything that I'm seeing seems very, very positive. Two facts that I found that is frankly just hilarious to me is that Sonic the Hedgehog already has a higher reviewer score on Rotten Tomatoes than both Birds of Prey and Star Wars Episode 9. To me, you can't get too much more of a contrast than what you're seeing here. Okay, I've mentioned before that I think one of the big reasons that our franchises are having so much trouble is that they're not catering to their fans. The writers, directors, runners, whatever, have the social message that they want to put out, and they're using these franchises solely as a platform to try to beat people over the head with their social message. Instead of, if they do have a social message, kind of enwrapping that into the story and letting us come to our own conclusion. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog, people have had some controversy. It does take place in our world and not Sonic's world, and some people really wanted the entire movie just to be in the Sonic the Hedgehog world, and I can understand that. I can see that people are like, okay, we're tired of seeing characters from other worlds come to our world, we want to go to their world. So that is kind of a valid thing, but at the same time, just from what I've seen in the trailers and what other people have talked about online, it seems like they kept Sonic the Hedgehog faithful to its source material at least as much as they could. I am very much looking forward to seeing Jim Carrey again in his full chaos cartoon glory. I think that Jim Carrey is a better actor than what a lot of people give him credit for, which is a shame. He's been in some good movies, he's been in some bad movies, but it seems like it's been a very long time since we've seen him really get goofy on screen. So, as much as I dislike going to the movie theater and prefer to stay in the comfort of my own personal setup, I do look forward to going out and seeing Jim Carrey again. But again, going back to what I was saying before, I don't think that we can have a bigger contrast in this movie and Star Wars and Birds of Prey. In Star Wars especially, I haven't seen a whole lot of it with Birds of Prey, but it's still out there. But especially in Star Wars, any criticism that was levied towards the movies, and as far as I can tell, this is going all the way back to The Force Awakens, But any criticism that was put towards the movies for any reason was largely written off as you're just sexist or racist or ist or phobe or something. No one at Lucasfilm, no one at Disney seemed willing to listen to the fans' concerns and make adjustments. They wanted to produce the movie they wanted to produce with their message, their characters, and they really didn't care about the fandom that was out there. It largely seems that the same thing happened with Birds of Prey. Now, I haven't seen this film, so I can't say too terribly much about it. But what I have seen is the similar attacks of the fans. If you do not like the film, the criticisms that you have aren't respected. You're just shouted down by the production studio and by the fans of the film saying, well, you're just ist or phobe or this or that. They don't want to debate the film on its merits, on its characters, on its logic. They want to attack and minimalize anything you have to say or your thoughts because they want you to have right think. They want any opinion that you have to be wrong just because it's the ist or phobe in you coming out, not because you might have a valid point or a difference of opinion. They want you to sit down, shut up, buy their product, and if you don't, at least don't say anything bad about it, because it's an easy way to shut people down, make them feel like they're doing something wrong. Now compare that reaction to the criticisms that were levied against the Sonic the Hedgehog movie when the first trailers came out. There was a fan backlash over the way that Sonic had been redesigned for the film. Rather than come out and say, oh, you guys are terrible, this is our artistic vision, why can't you grow up, or just something, the company actually went in, spent the time and money to recreate Sonic in a much more faithful adaptation of the original Sonic the Hedgehog design. Now, they still took some artistic liberties, which is fine, but they listened to their fans. They also kept everything very faithful to the original games and the original idea of Sonic the Hedgehog. They didn't change Sonic into trying to represent some minority or some group of people that are underrepresented. They didn't change any of the characters because there wasn't enough diversity in a story about a talking hedgehog. They kept everything very faithful to what the fans had grown to love. And listening to their fans and catering to their fans, they're now being rewarded. Rotten Tomatoes has Sonic the Hedgehog above these other two films. It is making more money in the box office than what should have been, quote, should have been, a much larger film in Birds of Prey. Sonic the Hedgehog is killing it. It's everywhere, and it's going to succeed very well. I personally think we're going to see a bunch of little kids that never really thought about Sonic the Hedgehog before, and a big resurgent in Sega's mascot character, because a lot of people are being exposed to Sonic the Hedgehog for the first time. A lot of children may never have played a Sonic the Hedgehog game before and are going, wow, this is really neat, and they may go back and play the old ones. Or if Sega's smart, they'll start releasing new Sonic the Hedgehog games. Hopefully they don't just do, some crappy movie adaptation, but actually release more games like Sonic Mania so that people can get the feel of what started everything. So, just amazing. Listening to your customers and listening to your fans breeds success. I don't know what's so complicated about that, but companies just seem to want to produce things and try to sell them instead of saying, well, what do you want? And then producing what people want. It's so simple. Listen to what people have to say and you will succeed. Try to force people to do things that they don't want to do, or buy things or believe things that they don't want, and they won't buy it. It's so simple, yet they're screwing things up so badly. It's bad, in my opinion, as big of a fan as I am of Star Wars, that I am more excited to go see a video game adaptation movie of Sonic the Hedgehog, not even one of my favorite video game characters. Probably not even top 10 of my favorite video game characters. And I am much more excited to go see this movie than Star Wars. If you would have gone back 10 years ago, or me as a child, and said, hey, what movie would you rather see, Sonic the Hedgehog or Star Wars, and told little me that I'd be more excited to see Sonic the Hedgehog, me as a kid, me as a teenager, me in college, me up until a few years ago, would not have believed you. It's just so messed up how things have changed so quickly that a major fan like me just doesn't care about these franchises that used to be what I just loved and watched every day. It still feels like I'm somehow living in some type of alternate reality or other dimension or episode of the Twilight Zone where Star Wars and Star Trek don't interest me anymore. It's just amazing what they've managed to do in such a short time. But hopefully this is a turnaround. Hopefully people learn the right lessons from this. They look at it and say, wow, okay, listening to the fans works. Who would have thought? And somehow turn Star Wars around, turn Star Trek around, and get everything back on path. Turn the DC heroes around, get everything flowing again so that the fans are satiated, and then you grow your base out from your fans, not try to get the wider audience at the expense of your fans. Your wider audience, your casual viewers, are not going to see you through the desert of when your franchise starts declining, like Star Wars fans did in the 90s, like Star Trek fans did in the 70s. The wider audience is not going to keep your properties alive. They're just going to consume, and then when they're done consuming, move on. You've got to take care of your fans first. Otherwise, this very type of thing starts to happen. You will become irrelevant, and you will die out and vanish. Sonic the Hedgehog has been around since the 90s. It's having a big resurgence now with this movie. Sonic the Hedgehog will be a big character. There will be merchandising money to be made. I'm sure people are already producing fan art and gearing up for conventions and cosplay and who knows what else. Star Wars is becoming less and less relevant. Star Trek is becoming less and less relevant. Doctor Who is becoming less and less relevant. It's just, I don't know how you get a more clear contrast. Listen to fans successful. Don't listen to fans crash and burn. It's that simple. While I was looking around on the internet, I came across this article from IGN. It's from February 5th, 2020, from a Matt Purslow. And it's an interview, it's about an interview that was done with Mashiro Sakura. Sorry if I butchered that. I'm not the best at Japanese names. Hell, sometimes I struggle with English names. But in the article, he's talking about an interview that was done with the director of Smash Brothers. And basically, the article is entitled, Super Smash Bros. Director thinks there are too many Fire Emblem characters in Ultimate. Now, online there was a lot of controversy about the last DLC character being the main character from Fire Emblem Three Houses, and people saying, oh great, yet another Fire Emblem character, blah blah blah. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the Fire Emblem series. I've played a few of the games. I've never actually played any of them all the way through, but I've sat down and played with a few of them. As far as I can tell, they're fine games. I don't have a big problem with the number of Fire Emblem characters in Smash Brothers. It makes sense. Nintendo characters, Nintendo doesn't have to go through a bunch of licensing and legal crap to get them into the game. So, to me, it makes perfect sense why they're in the game and why there are so many of them. Does it make sense from a balance and variety standpoint? No, not really, but I'm nowhere near as upset about it as other people are. But getting back to the article, when discussing the Smash Bros. Ultimate character roster, he's quoted as saying, I know it as well. There are too many Fire Emblem characters, he said, and too many swordsmen, but when something's decided, I move ahead with it. He also explained that the choice is out of his hands when it comes to new characters. He said, quote, new fighters aren't decided by my preference, but are put forward by Nintendo. Now, I think we all knew that. The director of the game, I'm sure, can have some small amount of input, but for a game like Smash Brothers that has so many franchises, so many different intellectual property holders, I mean, just going from the top of my head, you already have Nintendo characters, you have Capcom characters, you have Konami characters, you have Bandai Namco characters. I mean, I'm sure there are others that I'm forgetting, but the licensing requirements to put a character into the game, I'm sure, is a nightmare. So Nintendo's going around choosing their own characters to, of course, save money and maximize their profits, but are also having to go out to other companies and make these deals. And I'm sure it's easier now than when they first started putting characters from other publishers and companies into their games, because it seems like Smash Brothers now has really become a all-stars, who's who video game hall of fame for inclusion. So would I have rather seen another character added to Smash Brothers Ultimate rather than yet another Fire Emblem character? Yes. I mean, I personally vote very heavily that Dante from Devil May Cry should be added to Smash. I think it would be great. There are other characters out there that I think would be wonderful to add to Smash. There are all kinds of characters out there that I think would be just wonderful to add to Smash Brothers and bring the entire video game industry together under one roof, so to speak. You know, I'd like to see some kind of indie games in there. I'd like to see, for example, Shovel Knight more. And I do like, in a way, the way they're handling some of this, the way they're bringing Cuphead into it as a costume for the Mii fighter. I think they could do more of that, or taking existing characters and adding more costumes to them to kind of squeeze some more characters in there. I'd like to see, for example, Shantae be in Smash Brothers. I think she'd fit in really well. So, but if it's a choice between, hey, do you get more Nintendo characters into this great game, and as much as they may be very similar and not add so much, but a new character, a new experience, or not, I'd love to see more Fire Emblem characters and more Nintendo characters, as opposed to not having it or not having as many, because of all the licensing and problems that you have to go through to get these third-party characters into the game. Are there too many Fire Emblem characters in the game? I guess that's a matter of opinion. I suppose if you're a big Fire Emblem fan and you love all the Fire Emblem games, I'm sure you'd say no, that there aren't enough Fire Emblem characters in the game. If you're not a fan of Fire Emblem, you don't like Fire Emblem, it's not your thing, I'm sure you think that there are way too many. So it's really subjective. Who am I to argue with the director? I would like to see even more characters added. But I can understand why they put them in there. I can understand why they're there. They're a diverse group, and there are only so many characters that you can pull from Mario Brothers, from Star Fox, from Metroid, before you just start getting really repetitive. And are there even Nintendo characters that I'd like to see in there? Yeah, sure. I'd like to see Smithy or Janine from Mario RPG. I'd like to see Wart from Mario Brothers 2. Yeah, I know it's Doki Doki Panic, blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, I'm sorry, he's still a Nintendo character from my childhood that I've only ever seen really in one game. Let's throw Wart in there. That'd be cool. Who would expect Wart to be a Smash Brothers character? Let's drop him in there. Now, they have announced that the next pass is coming out, and I believe it's going to be 6 new characters. I'm really hoping that Dante will be one. I'm hoping some of the other characters will be in there that I've mentioned. If not, no big deal. I'm sure they'll choose good ones. But in the end, Smash Brothers is a great game. If you don't have it, go out and buy it. It's one of, if not my favorite fighting game of all time. And with the addition of some of the characters that they put in there, it's just getting better all the time. So I feel that it's worth it. I went out and paid the money for it. I got the DLC. I'm happy with it. And I'm ready and willing to go with the next DLC. I don't think I'll buy it quite yet. I'd want at least one of the characters out before I dish over the money. But I'm pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to buy up the next 6 characters too. Hell, I'll probably buy up to 6 characters, even if all 6 of them are from Fire Emblem, and I'm not even a huge Fire Emblem fan. So, yeah, I can understand why some people are upset, but I still think it's a great game, even with all the Fire Emblem characters. I'd love to see other characters, let's get them in there, but hey, there's only so much you can complain about an absolute masterpiece. Now, speaking of video game news, I came across this article that absolutely floored me. It was from The Verge from February 14th of 2020, and it was by a Jay Peters. And it's basically, the name of the article is IRS Backtracks on Whether Video Game Currencies Are Taxable. So, let me get this straight. The IRS was going to look at video games and say, oh, you made some gold in World of Warcraft or whatever, or you picked up some coins in Mario Brothers, and now that stuff is taxable. So I went to the IRS website and found the original release of when they were talking about doing this. Basically, the IRS lumped, quote, some in-game currencies in with cryptocurrency, specifically V-Bucks from Fortnite. Now, I understand the government trying to tax cryptocurrency. There have been people that have made a lot of money off of cryptocurrency, off mining it, off buying it, investing in it, stuff like that. But is the in-game video game currency really that big of a tax issue? It just makes no sense, and I'm glad that the IRS backed off on this. We're lumping in-game video game currency into the same group as cryptocurrencies, calling them convertible virtual currency. Convertible virtual currency. Now, that does very much sound like cryptocurrency. You can get Bitcoin, you can get any of those, and then convert them into United States dollars or whatever currency, and then make purchases with them. I mean, there's a lot of places now that you could just make purchases with your cryptocurrency. So that kind of makes sense. And you can get physical goods, you can get investment. I mean, there's all kinds of things. In-game video game currency, yes, I'm sure, and anybody that's been on eBay or Craigslist or something like that can find people that are trying to sell gold or whatever that they've gotten from whatever video game that they're playing, and they're trying to sell it for real money. But it's not like a cryptocurrency wallet where you can just go out and fairly easily convert Bitcoin into cash. It doesn't work that way. It's not designed to work that way. And honestly, reading about this just made my eyes roll, because it sounded like such an overreach. Really? You're going to come after, like, okay, so I don't play too many online games, but I do log on and occasionally play a few hands of Magic the Gathering on the Magic Gathering arena. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm not all that great at Magic. I play it once in a while. I'm not a champion. I'm not some tournament guy. I just go on, get a couple of wins, get a couple of losses, dink around when I'm eating lunch or waiting for a video to compile or upload to YouTube or whatever. I'll enjoy that, and I'll get, some of the in-game currency in it. Are you telling me that somebody in the IRS had the just wonderful idea of, well, you got something of value, even though it's not a card, it's just completely digital, you got something out of that, so I want to tax your gold that you earned in Magic the Gathering? Really? Somebody... This is part of the problem with people that make rules and laws and regulations. They'll just make stuff about crap they don't understand. Was there value created in me playing this game? I guess you could argue in some way. I have some virtual cards that I can make a deck out of and have fun for a few minutes with. But it's not like it's a material good that was created. Fortunately, for once, somebody in government, thankfully, took a step back and said, wait, what? No, we're not going to count video game currency as taxable. That's just ridiculous. So I am very glad somebody at the IRS stepped in and stopped this, and we won't have another form in our tax returns about how many hours of whatever MMORPG was played and how many credits or gold or whatever is going to have to be converted and pay tax on it. That was ridiculous. I am glad this was defeated. Hopefully it remains defeated. Now, if we can just get them to stop blaming video games every time some idiot gets some kind of violence on and people come out and go, oh, what, video games? Here's the scapegoat. Let's get on those because those weren't around when I was a kid, and that's clearly the problem. Ugh. At least we can count this as a victory. So, moving off that news to a little bit of a happier note, I did come across an article online that was announcing that a few games are being released for free on the Epic Game Store, and I know everybody has their opinion on the Epic Game Store. I don't want to get into that right now, but I did notice that Kingdom Come Deliverance was being released for free on the Epic Game Store. And that got me thinking, don't I have that game? So I went back and looked, and sure enough, at some point, I had picked up a copy of Kingdom Come Deliverance and just never got around to playing it. So, kind of in honor of that, I've started playing Kingdom Come Deliverance on PlayStation 4, and I just wanted to give my quick impression based on playing a few hours of the game. So, Kingdom Come Deliverance really goes for a historical accuracy, at least the feeling of historical accuracy, and a feeling of realism. Now, of course, being a PlayStation game, there's only so much realism you can have to a sword fight, but the overall arcing story, the setting of Kingdom Come Deliverance seems to be historically correct, even if most of the characters are fictional. There is some issue that I'm aware of that some of the armor is a little questionable with its historical accuracy, given that there's been arguments made that given the setting and some of the armor types wouldn't be found there, but these are all kind of nitpicks, small things. The game does a good job of making you feel like you're in the 1400s, that you're in the middle of this daily life of the people that lived back then. And although not everything's perfect, it does give you this much better feeling of the Middle Ages in history than a lot of other video games. Now, playing the game, just picking up the controller and walking around and stuff, it reminded me a lot of Skyrim. And that's not necessarily a good thing, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just picking it up and playing it, it did remind me of Skyrim. It did remind me of Skyrim both from the setting and the first-person view and the way people walk around and act and things. One thing that I noticed that they did to try to make things more realistic but really doesn't have to be in there is most of the time when you pick something up, say you're sitting there, you're standing there, and you look down and there's a plate of fruit, like apples or something, and you want to pick up one of the apples. You put your thing over it, you hit X to pick it up, and instead of it just picking up like it does in Skyrim or a lot of other games and appearing in your inventory, your character reaches their arm out and picks it up. Now, yes, that makes it seem more realistic, but at the same time, it makes picking stuff up really, really slow. Yes, I do appreciate the effort to make things realistic. Your character can be injured. He can get injuries to different body parts, which can make him less effective in combat and stuff like that. But do we really have to go to the realism of wasting time? And that's kind of where I draw the line. I like stuff realistic to the point that it starts wasting my time. I don't have a lot of time to play video games, and this game has a fast travel system, so if you were going to go fully realistic, you shouldn't be able to fast travel. You should have to, walk or ride your horse or whatever from one place to another. it does include other things like having to eat, having to sleep. In Skyrim, your character, unless you're, trying to recover hit points, you never have to eat anything. In Skyrim, you never have to sleep. You can, to my knowledge, or at least as all I played of Skyrim and Oblivion and stuff, you can pick up the game and play all the way through it and never sleep. You can have, I guess, months go by and never... The game will not force you to sleep. This game forces you to sleep. You have to kind of think about that stuff ahead of time. Part of it also is that the game, even if you sleep, you still have to eat. So you may eat, fight some, and think, oh, I'll just sleep and then I'll be fine. You might sleep, recover your hit points, and then your stamina is down because you're hungry and you don't have any food. So that's neat. That's interesting. But like I said, I like games up to the point for the realism until they start wasting my time. They could have taken the arm reach to pick items up out of the game. That would have made things a lot faster. I really wish more games would do what like Borderlands does, where if you just walk up and it's an item and it's within range, you're going to pick it up. All you have to do is pick up one item of ammunition, and everything in that general area kind of sucks into you that you need. I wish that games, especially one-player games, would do that more often. It just makes things so much faster, so much easier. The storyline itself is slow, but it's not a bad slow. It's not like a, hey, I'm bored. It's more like it gives the game a little bit of time for you to feel it out. Now, I'm only about 5 hours into the game or so, so I've not seen a whole lot of the game. I can already tell just from playing it that this could be a very long game. Now, I don't want to spoil anything in the game, not even for the beginning of the game, but I will say that once the event happens, once things go down, the characters that you've met and got to know, I felt something for. There have been other games where I have spent hours and hours with characters that just didn't connect with me. Within 30 minutes, 45 minutes of wandering around and talking to certain characters, they really connected with me, and when things happened, it did generate within me an emotional response. So that was very positive. Towards the beginning of the game, there is a chase scene, which it wasn't very well done. There was a time when I stopped and looked back, and rather than continuing to chase me down and pull me off my horse, the enemies just stopped within their bow range and just started shooting at me. They didn't react like you would expect someone to react if they just stopped. So that was a little awkward, but the feel of it while it was happening was very, very good. I felt stressed. I felt like I had to get out of there. I felt what they wanted me to feel. And then once I got to where I was going, there was another character that I met that I really liked her and her story and how she connected with my character. And there's a lot that happens in the story that I really liked. And I want to continue playing it. Is it worth being free on Epic Game Store? If you absolutely hate Epic Game Store and you don't want to have anything to do with them, is it worth free? Yes, it is definitely worth going and downloading it. It's a value title, and it's definitely shows as a value title, and it's good as a value title. Just from what I've played, would I want to pay $60 full for it? No. But if you don't want to get it off Epic and you can pick it up at a reasonable price, say $20, $30, then go for it. I mean, it's a decent game so far, unless they tank the thing as I get into it. If they do, I'll note it in an upcoming episode. But so far, just based on what I've played, it seems to be a decent enough game. Do I like it as much as Skyrim? Mechanically, no. Setting, yes, maybe a little bit more. Characters, I do like more. I think they have a whole lot more personality in this than they did in Skyrim. So It is a decent game if you're ready for things to take a little bit slower of a pace, the combat system to be a little complicated, and the game's tutorials don't do a very good job of teaching you the mechanics of, say, the battle system and the lock picking system. It's just text on a screen, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I will admit I am struggling with that some, because it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't explain it very well. So that is an issue. But all in all, I'm having fun with it. I don't know if I'll finish it, because I don't know if I have that kind of time. And there are some games coming up that I want to play with, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Cyberpunk coming out. Those are going to be time sinks for me, because those are ones I definitely want to play. So I'll keep you guys updated, and I may throw another game in at some point if I get bored with it, or if it's a long grind, I may find something kind of fun and wacky to play that's not so serious and doesn't require so much of my attention. So I've got a little bit of a 2-for-1 for you guys. I had recorded this impressions review of Octopath Traveler a while back. I had intended to include it in a previous podcast, but for various reasons it didn't work out, and I didn't want to just throw it away. So since you're listening to me give my quick impressions of Kingdom Come Deliverance, I thought you might also like to hear my impressions of Octopath Traveler. So I don't have a whole lot of time to sit down and play a bunch of video games like I used to. It seems like it's been years and years since I've been able to pull out a video game, sit down, and really put the time into it that I used to when I was a kid. I guess adult and real life just sucks. You just can't sit down and enjoy a game like you used to. But I do sit down and play them from time to time, and I recently finally beat the last secret boss, Octopath Traveler. Now, I just wanted to give a real quick impression of the game after playing some of it. I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed the game. I thought that it was a great callback to the old 8-bit and 16-bit RPGs. The music was wonderful. The battle system was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything spectacular, but it wasn't terrible either. It was a good battle system. The artwork was amazing. I'm a big fan of pixel artwork. I love pixel artwork. I think that old school Nintendo, Super Nintendo games never get old because they just look so wonderful. They may be 30 years old, but they still look great. Compare that to early Polygon and 3D games that just don't hold up well. They look like crap. Some of them even play badly now. The old games just had a charm with them that it just is timeless. And this game taps into that. Now, was the game great? Yeah, I'd say it was pretty good. One of the biggest problems I had with it was that the characters just didn't interact with each other. You had all 8 of these characters that you could mix and match that went through their own individual stories, and some of them were actually pretty good. I don't want to get into any spoilers or anything. Though I will say, Primrose was my favorite. She's my bitch. I'm just saying, Primrose, yep, I liked Primrose. But you had all 8 of these characters, and it seemed like they should talk to each other. Like there should be big interactive events that would happen in a story where it would seem like another one of the characters would have stepped in and said something or had an opinion on it. And yes, I know they do have their little skits where they'll talk to each other and make comments about things that happen. But in the middle of the story, it just felt like you were playing... It felt, honestly, a lot, the way I would put it, it felt like I was playing 8 individual RPGs that were just sort of shuffled in with each other. It didn't feel like a Final Fantasy game, for example, where the characters interact with each other and they all have things to say and they grow together. There was very little of that in Octopath Traveler. It honestly felt like somebody had taken 8 different RPGs and just shuffled them together and then tried to, after the fact, kind of connect them some with these skits. When I was wandering around and my thief was stealing everything that wasn't nailed down and some of the stuff that was, I was like, shouldn't the like noble warrior and the cleric say something to him about it. Like it seemed like there was this big disconnect that all the characters were only going on their own story and not interacting with each other. And I understand technical limitations with, being able to play a lot of these stories in any order and different characters being there or not being there and stuff. It would make designing a lot of these conversations a mess. So in a way, I understand it. It just felt off. And that's kind of been my problem with a lot of these open world games. Yes, open world games are great. I love them. I love Fallout. Let me rephrase that. I love older Fallout games. There are other games out there that are great that just draw me in, and I feel like I'm adventuring and discovering things. But one of the big problems with these types of games, where you can play them in any order, is that they can't have a structured narrative. A story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when you don't have those things, it really affects the cohesiveness of the story and leads to these kinds of things. Not saying that this game is bad, but I would have very much liked maybe a little less freedom in how it was played and a lot more structure to the narrative. A lot more interaction between the characters. So, Octopath Traveler, I'd say, it's a good game. If you get a chance to go out and play it, take the chance. I wouldn't pay full price for it. But if you can pick it up used, if you can get a hold of it at a reasonable price, give it a shot. Just the great pixel art and music is worth it. It is literally, if it had a tighter narrative, it would be what a Super Nintendo RPG always wanted to be. It is definitely worth playing at the right price. Back when I was talking about the controversy surrounding interspecies reviewers, I noted that I hoped it didn't get shield heroed and just stuck in this kind of limbo of never being released. Well, it looks like the great anime gods heard me, because I just heard that Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1, Parts 1 and 2 are both coming out on May 26th. That's according to Right Stuff, so I'm a big fan of Rising of the Shield Hero. I got to see a few episodes and really liked what I saw. I haven't got to see the rest of them. And I've honestly been waiting for this set to come out. I thought with all the controversy that was around that show as well, and how much people were making such a big deal out of it at the time, that Funimation had just given up on it and that it would never see the light of day as far as a Blu-ray release, and that they would kind of shove it under the rug. But I've been pleasantly surprised that, hey, it's going to come out. Now I'm just hoping that they don't do something stupid like try to censor it or change something to get around that terrible controversy that was in there. Oh, please let this be good. Please, please, please. I really like this show. I want to own it, and I want to put it in and watch it and enjoy it and catch up on everything. That's the thing. I enjoy watching it on Blu-ray or DVD. I don't do too much streaming these days. It's just so expensive to do it. And I don't like how stuff just disappears from streaming. I don't have anything against streaming if that's what you enjoy, but I prefer to own physical media. So I always run behind on reviews as far as anime goes because I'm waiting for physical media releases. So, victory for me. Hey, victory for everybody that likes Rising of the Shield Hero. Yay, it's coming out. It's finally coming out. And from what I've seen on Right Stuff, if the artwork is anything like it'll actually look, it looks like a nice set. So, yay, victory for us. Well, it looks like that about does it for this episode. Next week, we're going to be talking some more video game news. I'm sure I'll have some sci-fi to talk about. We're going to be talking a little bit of Star Wars, and I'll be giving some more thoughts on another anime I've been watching. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks again, guys.